something doesn't feel right. Excuse me. Sorry, my throat is blocked. I've heard this term so many times, and I've lost count of the amount of times I've said this in my life. I was just sitting down having a meditation, just processing stuff, because I like to do that a lot. I'm a very deep thinker. And I thought about the struggles that I've had in my life, and different moments of joy, success, different levels of awareness, different moments of subscribing to certain beliefs, doing certain things, and thinking about the great privilege that I've had to be around. I've been around so many different men. Teaching allowed me to do that over the 5 years. Even before teaching, socialising. And it's funny to think that for many years I was frightened of men. Obviously I've spoken about this before because of the relationship I had with my father and the relationship I had with myself. So I was just thinking about, I was thinking about congruency. I was just reading something on a Christian forum about alignment, what alignment to God means. You don't have to be a Christian, but just in spiritual terms, aligning to your true path, aligning to your true potential, aligning to your values, aligning to your calling, aligning to your soul, aligning to love, aligning to personal truth. And this really brings me on to when I was going out doing day game and meeting women on the street. Even before it was called day game, I was going out on the street with Floyd when it wasn't even a term. It was basically just to chat women up. That's what I picked up from Floyd. It could be in a supermarket, it could be in a shop, it could be in a train station, it could be at a party. It didn't matter. It could be a nightclub. It was just really about the sort of mentality when I started was, did you get the girl? Are you having sex? That's it. It was all about sex. That was it. That was the purpose. And there wasn't really any rules in how you achieve that goal. Whether you was honest, whether you was manipulative, whether you used tactics, that didn't really play a part when I first started. That was the level of consciousness that I was at. That was my level of intelligence, and that was true for me at a particular stage in my life. But coming back to what I said about something doesn't feel right, for many years, of course, I definitely enjoyed going out and picking women up and sleeping with them. I think if I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't have done it. To state the obvious, if that makes sense, I wouldn't have done it if I didn't enjoy it. And I had a tremendous amount of dedication to get good at it, based on always being very insecure growing up, always being very shy, very introverted, just carrying so many insecurities. I personally thought I was the most insecure man on the earth, which isn't true, but selfishly we always sort of feel that we're alone and we compare ourselves to people that we feel are doing better than us. And just based on the evidence in my life growing up, I was a slow starter. I was a virgin until 21. I lost my virginity to a prostitute. I paid for sex. At 16 years of age, I had an opportunity to have sex with a girl. I was too overwhelmed, too much fear, anxiety. I couldn't get an erection. That embarrassed me. That traumatized me for a few years. When I finally slept with a girl, I think I was about 21 or 21 and a half, about 22, a proper girl that actually came to me. And come to think of it, there was no manipulation whatsoever. I met her at the job centre. We was in a group, and I was my normal self, which was incredibly nervous, anxious and shy. But this group that we did, this setting forced me, well, I got partnered up with this girl who was very attractive. It forced me to interact with her. And when I look back, I was my true nature back then. There was I couldn't hide it. I was in but she liked me. She liked me for who I was. And I liked her, and she actually invited me out. She really carried me through the whole process, and I slept with her. We dated for a few months, and that ended because I got insecure and I was frightened to commit. I was too young, I was 22, I didn't know who I was. I was trying to find work and so forth. But that experience, that's gonna make sense in a second. So it was shortly after that I'd met Floyd, about 23, and because I came from a place, or I believed I came from a place of many years of lack, of always struggling to make money, always struggling to relate to people. Now, contradictory to what I just said, I always made friends, but there was always an emotional struggle. I was always in a bad mood. I was in a good mood sometimes. I was up, I was down. It was just something didn't feel right in my relationships, even with my family. It never felt fully right with my mum and dad. Not to say that I didn't love them, because I loved them very much, but there was just, even with myself, everything in my life, everything didn't feel right. But as I started to progress, as you do, as you get older, you grow more, life naturally present you with opportunities, some good, not so good. I became more confident in myself, especially after spending time with Floyd, and of course I put a lot of time on by myself going out in London. When I got into learning about pick-up artistry and I learned some of the stuff from the other teachers, I started to work from that place of having an agenda to just have sex with women and go out. That was my whole life. That was all I lived for. I didn't care about anything else. I didn't even care about, to be honest, I wasn't even thinking about bad health, getting ill. I was so selfish. I wasn't thinking about the damage I could do to other people, how I could affect other people. I didn't care. I didn't care about nothing. All I cared about was getting good at going out, sleeping with women. I really wanted to do that, and I wanted to be seen. I wanted other men to see, this guy's good. So I was very insecure, and I was obviously very egotistical, but I wanted that because I felt in childhood that had been taken away from me, that approval, that validation, or I don't even know if that's the right thing, that I wanted that identity as a man. That meant a lot for me. So I associated being a man as being good with women. And it was a personal scar that I was carrying, because not only did I have, I had a trauma with my dad growing up, I had a trauma with my mum actually, because I had a hard time connecting with my mum. That's not comfortable to admit, but that is the truth. We got on well, she was very loving towards me, I was loving towards her. There was a lot of conflict, and that conflict was obviously coming from myself, my relationship with me. So that projected out of women, and I'd had some early experiences, as we all do, all of us guys do, where a few women had actually called me ugly, and that's a very dangerous word to call someone when they're in a very vulnerable place in their self. And it's just a word. If someone called me ugly now, I wouldn't bat an eyelid. It wouldn't even affect me. But at that time, it really affected me to be called ugly. It was like the ultimate abandonment and rejection to be called that by a woman, especially an attractive woman. At that time, what I perceived to be attractive, high value in a nightclub, girl called me ugly. A few other experiences of betrayal from girlfriends leaving me and dating another guy. Girls laughing and making fun in earlier primary school, that kind of stays on your psychology. A lot of these things we think, they're just small things, but they're not. They actually stay on the psychology. Depending on how strong you are, your values, how you were brought up, how much love you got, relationship with mum and dad plays a huge part. So I was incredibly sensitive to criticism. So I carried all this in going into day game, all these scars, all these wounds, this need to prove something. I remember my nan saying to me, what is it? You've got this thing that you want to prove yourself all the time. You don't need to do that. And I was, this rage. And that coincided with going to the gym. My mentality when I went to the gym was exactly the same mentality of going out and getting good at meeting women on the street and then teaching it. It was, I have to get into shape, because I was always skinny growing up. I mean, I'm still naturally quite slim. I've got a big frame now. I've put on a lot of weight since I was younger, but I'm naturally quite slim. I've got a slim face, and I was always skinny growing up, really skinny. I was always insecure about that, and that again played a part in how I thought women viewed me, and are men going to take advantage of me because I'm small? I was tall, but I was slim. So I trained my arse off in the gym for years, and I eventually got into shape. I built the physique that I wanted. I was ripped, had a six pack. I was never a massive guy, but I was, for my frame, how my genetics allowed me. I didn't use steroids. I got incredible shape, but something didn't feel right despite getting into shape. It didn't I mean, it made me happy. It made me happy for a short time, but there was still this inside feeling of something's out, hasn't clicked. So I took that into going out meeting women on the street, a day game, because after that, I'd realised that for me personally, I can't speak for everyone, for getting a good physique, it didn't really make a difference in attracting women. It didn't get me laid. It didn't get me closer to women. So when I started to approach women, I spent hours, as I said, 8 to 12 hours. I wasn't working about 5-6 years ago, going out on the street. I was just walking around on my own. I was pretty lonely, to be honest. I was really lonely. And that came from that place of that voice, that intuitive feeling something doesn't feel right. But as I said, I was lonely, but I did enjoy it. So it's like I didn't enjoy it, I was lonely, something didn't feel right, but there was a lot of joy there, there's a lot of escapism going out and speaking to women on the street, and especially when the results started to come. You know, that feeling of I suppose it's that feeling of being abandoned and rejected, and then feeling accepted. That adulation, that rush of endorphins, that rush of feeling you're liked by people and women. That's what that was giving me going out every time I was getting results, and that feeling of the connection you get of yourself. Because we always think that when we speak to women and we get successful women, we think it's almost like the woman is a representation, like a trophy, but we also have to realise we feel good because the woman has approved us. So we feel good because she's approved us. She's approved us by liking us and having sex with us, or going on a date, or just having a conversation. So you start realising that there's something that doesn't feel right is in the self. It's not in women. But there's an illusion of that. It's not in mum or dad, it's not in the guy that bullied at your school, even though everyone plays a part. It's back to you. Because when I started to get results, as I said, the rush you get, the high, and then you start coming back down, I realised that it was hard to admit this, because I'd heard it before from men who had done well. But I started to realise that I'm not really feeling that much better from when I slept with one woman to 3 to 5 to 10, 15, so forth. Or I'm not feeling much different to when I got one phone number to when I've got 30 or 50 phone numbers. I still feel the same. I'm still Jonathan or Johnny. I'm still that guy. I'm still the guy from the council step. I'm still the guy who was shy at school. I'm still the guy who didn't really get on well with his dad. It's the story's still there. Even though my results with women have changed, I've got more sexual experience, there's something that doesn't feel right. But I ignored it for a while, so it's like, here's the level of consciousness where you're at, level of intelligence, and this is doing the day game, getting laid, and just your habits, your relationships. But underneath here, there's something that sits there, and it's always there, it doesn't move, and it doesn't feel right. But I was too frightened to look at that, couldn't look at that. Because to look at that would mean having to lose all that. And I thought, I can't give up the day game, can't lose this stuff, because it's just giving me so much, it's giving me such a buzz, such a rush. And then when I started to teach, that was huge, because now I'm teaching other men. People look up to me, and I love teaching. I've always been a natural, nurturing person, contradictory to how violent I used to be and dysfunctional. But my true self has always been very caring, very loving, and enjoyed helping people. That was from when I was in primary school. It might play a part in my psychology, because I felt abandoned and I wanted to have some way of helping others to also help me too, selfishly. Why else would you help other people if it didn't make you feel good? It wouldn't make sense. So I ignored it for a long time. And then the years went by, and I was growing. I definitely was growing in confidence. I could do public speaking and teaching. I could feel that growth. I could feel that neediness was definitely lessening. Because of course you're not going to be as needy when you, and I'm not being arrogant when I say this, but I got to a level where I was so good. Like, it's supremely confident that I could go out and pretty much get laid whenever I wanted. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Obviously I had to put an X amount of hours in, but I could get on dates whenever I wanted. I'd go out, walk around on the street for an hour and get a date with an attractive woman. I may have to speak to a few women, of course, I got turned down. But that confidence and that consistency, it did build up a certain amount of arrogance. I became incredibly arrogant and cocky, and to some extent it has the illusion that you're becoming more secure because you're more confident in yourself and assured at getting women, and your results determine that, and your results fulfill those beliefs. They give you that, you've got that certainty, and that breeds a certain type of confidence. Yeah, there's a lot of women that like that, a lot of people like that. But as I said, when I talked about that underlining feeling that something doesn't feel right, that's the insecurity. And that insecurity is massive. But that insecurity is being suppressed by the ego. That's what I wanted to say. The ego, the identity that you built up. And that ego and that identity, that is being fed by your whole outer reality. So your friends or your students, your family, you know, the beliefs and women, it was being reinforced. So I'm going, well, of course I must be secure because women like me. I've got all these women around me, and money as well. Money plays a part. Making money, getting paid to do that, it's reinforcing it. But even because I always had an insecurity about money growing up, even when I started to make more money, again it was like that rush. Yeah, money's coming in, but again, the money wasn't making me happy. It played a part. You can't deny that. But it was still, that thing underneath was still going, something doesn't feel right. I'm thinking, what the fuck doesn't feel right? And then when I moved into a posh place, beautiful girlfriend, famous teacher, you know, doing interviews and all the rest of it, but still something doesn't feel right. And even I'm scratching my head going, am I just complaining? Am I being a mummy's boy? Am I being ungrateful? Am I going too deep into things? Because I've often heard that before from girlfriends and friends. You're too deep. You think about things too much. But was I too deep? Was I thinking about things too much? Because I didn't feel in alignment with who I was. And I remember thinking, well, all right, the whole thing about monogamy and the whole don't be Mr. Nice Guy, all these sort of concepts that we talk about, this thing just felt bigger than all this. And I thought, I used to sometimes get the thought rise up, a voice saying, maybe the day is wrong, maybe the truth isn't there, maybe it's not the truth, maybe you should quit. I was like, what? It would send me into almost a panic attack, because this is everything I invested in. I put in over 10 years, and being a teacher and a student, and and I still was looking for that perfect, what we'd say 10, because I dated some really attractive women and had sex with them. As I said, just got to a level of, felt superhuman, I have to be honest, coming from the background that I came from. And to be really truthful and realistic, I know I'm not the best looking guy on paper, I've got no qualms about that, but my confidence and my understanding of psychology and how to manipulate a woman's emotions and get her to like me or create that, I was just fantastic at it. I just felt, in a sense, even though I was a very jealous person because I was insecure, I just felt, I didn't feel threatened in a sense by any man. Does that make sense? That sort of arrogance, that confidence, because I knew I could go out and meet 5, 10 women. Even if someone came along and took a girl from me, that would trigger me because of my insecurities from the past. But I knew I could just go out and meet another woman. So that arrogance and that certainty of saying, well, if this woman gets boring or she doesn't do what I say, I'm just going to go meet another woman. So my attitude, I started to really change. And I wasn't like that when I came into the day game. And when I said I met my first girlfriend through just being who I was, which was quite nervous and anxious, but still, a nice guy, she liked me and I slept with her. She was well into me. So I was starting to realize I'm losing something. I'm losing connection with who I am because of who I'm becoming. And a lot of people around me were saying, you're not arrogant, you're a nice guy, but people were going to say that because they're in the same frequency, they're in the same level of consciousness, or they're trying to get to where I was getting to. And this is not a judgment of anyone, I'm just speaking about myself and my projection, my relationship with the world, myself. And it was weird because I've got to be honest, after a while, I started to resent women. I started to have feelings of resentment towards women and towards myself and towards people. And that's when I started to really feel, I've started to feel depressed, I'm starting to feel anxious, I'm starting to feel scared, and I'm starting to feel I'm just asking those big questions. And these are the questions we usually ask when we're, when we're suicidal or depressed. And it's not a bad thing to ask these questions. It doesn't mean you have to be suicidal. But I was saying, what's the point of life? What's the point of this? What's the point of going out in the street to have sex with different women? What's the point of just teaching this every week? What's the point of making money when I'm not happy? Well, it's not the truth. And one day I sat there and I went, I was like this, just quiet. This is not the truth. And I said, what is the truth? I'm not sure. And of course, that's when you start saying, I need a teacher, I need a guru, I need to start going online, seeing someone who's at a higher level than me. I need to find out what's going on and speak to other men. And of course, it's a common story of a lot of men that have gone out and spent a lifetime being a player, if you want to call it, and then come to this conclusion of feeling deeply empty and unhappy, always kind of landing back to that place. Enjoying the ride, as I said, enjoying the process, and kind of up and down. And then, I'll tell you how I felt in the end. I felt, and it's so contradictory, but I felt abused and I felt used. I actually felt abused and used by women and people. I felt completely unappreciated. I felt abandoned. And I felt rage and anger and hate. That's what I felt for myself and for everyone, for the world. And I realised that it wasn't who I was. So despite enjoying it, because as I said I wouldn't have done it if I didn't enjoy it, it didn't make it right for me, and it didn't mean that's who I was. And it takes a lot of courage when all your friends believe in something, they're doing it, and you just decide it's not true, it's not right. I spent a lot of time contemplating on why it wasn't right, and I'm going to share my personal truth with you. Not to tell you what to do, not to tell you what's right, it's none of my business. This is just, I'm speaking to myself anyway, selfishly. But this might help you. Number one, it wasn't right because I was a cheat. I've become a full-time cheat. And then even my own ego, my own voice tried to rationalise that, and it said, you're not a cheat. Well, I was, because I cheated on every woman. So I had sex. I basically lied to women to get them into bed. And when I was going out, when I was in relationships, and I was promising to be monogamous, I lied and cheated.